Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Help with Natalie Cuomo. I am so excited for another episode. Last week, we talked to comedian Onika McLean. We got into some really fun stuff, and I am so excited for today's episode. I've got my lovely friend and comedian Linette Palladino. She is awesome. She is currently in the U.S. military. She's hilarious. She's a mother. And we're going to talk about so much stuff. Christmas just passed. We've got the New Year's coming up. And I don't know. Who knows what this episode will bring. We've got a new tarot deck. Recently engaged. Birthday just passed. Album just came out. So let's jump right in. Linette, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, but not as good as you, Natalie. What a year. Oh my goodness.
What a week.
Yeah, birthday and an engagement all in 1 week. Was it the same week or?
Day.
Same day. JK. Okay. Wow. And it sounded like he was really thoughtful about it, the way he did it.
He was very thoughtful.
I love that. That's great. I've been engaged 3 times and they all sucked.
Really? You have?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
I mean, the first one did make, a legit effort. He took me on a helicopter ride around New York City, but he didn't ask me when we were in the air. He asked me, after we had landed, and, people were like, all right, time to get off the helicopter, and he's, blocking them with an engagement ring.
No way!
People are opening the door. I was like, this is horrible.
How old were you?
Oh, I was stupid young. I was 23.
Really?
Yeah, it was right before I went to Iraq the first time.
Did you guys get married?
No.
No.
I only married my husband. I've only been married once. Engaged 3 times, but married once.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Number 2 asked me at Lincoln Center, which is my favorite spot, but I also got yelled at.
No, what do you mean?
You know how, Lincoln Center has that enormous fountain in the middle? He's like, stand up there. Instead of, getting down on one knee, he just made me higher. And then the security guard came and yelled at me, and I was like, this can't be our, proposal story. I'm like, this is terrible. I'm like, I'm going to say yes, but can you ask again? And he's like, I'm not asking you again. I was like, And then he dumped me 4 months later. Oh, no, actually it was much more than 4 months later, but yeah.
How old were you then?
26.
And then what was the final
It was my husband.
recipe for success?
Marry your dad's boss. That was the answer. David was my dad's boss. We certainly weren't dating then. And I know his whole family. I know his first wife. I know his kids. Nobody was thrilled about this arrangement. But he did not. He was so dumb about how he asked. We were at Red Eye Grill, which is somewhere.
What is that?
It's a beautiful restaurant across the street from Carnegie Hall, and we would go there a lot for happy hour before I would go out to do mics and shows and stuff. And so he just asked me one day, when I was on a timeline, I was I can't hang out and celebrate with you now. I have to go do shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he just asked me in the middle of happy hour, basically. It's not one of those places that has happy hour. It's a very bougie, has a Sinatra type feel to it, but it was just how are we supposed to enjoy this moment right now? So I took the next day off from work and I got my nails done and ran around to family and showed them, because I was not announcing it the same day anymore.
You're I need a manicure.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even make it public for the longest time. We got engaged in December, and then I didn't tell anyone on social media until maybe July.
How come?
I don't know, because when you've been engaged a couple of times, you're wait, let me make sure we're at least on our way to the altar. I had never, with the previous engagements, I hadn't even picked out a day or a venue or any of that stuff. I mean, with the first one, because I got engaged right before the deployment, it was just about let me survive Iraq and then I'll come back and plan a wedding. With the second one, it was, I knew the date. The date, the guy changed, but the date never did. I always wanted a New Year's Eve wedding.
Oh.
Yeah, which now as a comedian is really inconvenient. I'm oh, that's a good night for work, but okay. But I always knew I wanted a New Year's Eve wedding. And then with David, we had sent out invitations, I had a dress, I was I think it's okay to let people know beyond the inner circle that I'm getting married.
I definitely can relate because I have also been engaged before. So there is that feeling. And it was like 2 years ago, but there is that feeling of like, ugh. But I had never looked at a dress. I had never picked a date. I had never done any of those things that are like that next step towards actually getting married.
Yeah.
So even though Dan proposed like a little over than a week ago, I'm like, I already have my Pinterest board. Like, this is different. Like, I'm picking like, this is a barn themed wedding. Like, I know my dress style. It's just like, there's that feeling of like, I know I had an engagement that didn't work out, and you know that people are like, okay. And there's that feeling of like, no, this is different, and I just know that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's all you need. You don't fuck everybody else.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm like not normally a girly girl, but when you're like, when you see someone else who's so excited about something, I'm like, now I want to know everything. Like, you look so happy. I'm like, yeah, what is your dress style? What kind of barn do you want? Like, how rustic are we talking?
Rustic, baby. Oh, yeah, there's going to be bales of hay for sure.
Oh, good for you, because those weddings sound like so much work. Unless, like, you hire, like, a wedding planner, a lot of that shit's DIY.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
You have to do everything a la carte. Like, this person's going to bring your cutlery, and this person's going to bring the linens and shit. I'm like, no. I was like, I don't have time for that. I really have time for this wedding.
Totally. Did you wind up doing it on New Year's Eve?
I did. Yeah, I did it. You might know it. It's called the Waterside it's technically North Bergen, but people think it's Weehawken.
Okay.
So it's on the Hudson River.
Cool.
Yeah, it's like an event venue that does that. So we had like a complete view of the city and the skyline and all that. And because it's New Year's Eve, I don't know if people know, on New Year's Eve they set off fireworks above Central Park, like in the middle of the park, so we could see them from like our wedding venue and stuff.
Aww.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Was your family like accepting, even though it was your dad's boss?
I mean, I don't have a lot of family, so like my dad had already passed at that point, and my dad was an only child. My dad's mom was an only child, so like there was more friends than family. And it's kind of same on his side. Like he's not close with his father's side, his father's been passed for over a decade now, years, probably like 15, 16 years. His mom is still alive, and he has siblings from his mom's second marriage, and they were all there and all of that. But his 2 adult kids did not come, which is whatever. It's fine. That's what happens.
Did you guys care? Or like, how did you deal with that feeling?
I mean, it's not for me to deal with. Like, they're his kids, right? Like, I don't know. I wish we were all close, especially now, because every now and then our daughter will say, like, I have a brother and I have a sister. And I'm like, the fuck you do? And I'm like, oh, fuck, that's right, you do. They're just 22 years older than you. Like, and we never see them. It's like, or she'll make comments like, I want a sister. I'm like, well, you already have one.
You're like, I'm not getting pregnant again.
I would love to. It just hasn't happened.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a nightmare. We've been trying for like 3 years. I've had so many crazy like tests done for infertility. You're like, wow, I didn't know we did this. Like I had my fallopian tubes x-rayed.
Really?
Yeah, that's a fun one. Like,
what is that like? Where are the fallopian, like, what, how do you get that x-rayed?
So they insert a catheter through your vagina up through your uterus, and then the catheter is what they use to emit this contrast, and they'll flood your entire like reproductive system, uterus to fallopian tubes, with this contrast, and then they start taking x-rays. And so wherever they see the contrast coming out, they can see that there are no blockages. So as long as the contrast is flowing, they're like, that's great. You're free and clear. There's no blockages. Your eggs should be traveling down the fallopian tubes, no problem. And they were. Like, there were no issues there. So it was like, but it was, what an experience, because you're laying there. You're not knocked out or anything.
Oh
like,
my God. Is it painful?
No. They said it wouldn't be as painful for me because I've already had a kid. But, like, you know, you have this, like, legit radiologist doctor who does the procedure. I don't know why it has to be done by a radiologist, but it's done by a radiologist. And so he's just sitting there, like, telling the x-ray tech to take a picture every, like, so often. He's like, take that, take that, take that. And I'm like, the comic brain in me wants to be like, bitch. Take that, bitch. I'm like, I know he's got to be, like, super professional, especially nowadays with all, like, the, like, sexual harassment. Like, you've got, like, crazy guys like Dr. Larry Nassar out there, but, like, it was really, like, I was like, any other choice of words, sir? Like,
it's just so intense.
Yeah, like, take that. I'm like, okay.
I know. I definitely have had that experience getting x-rays of, like, my leg or other body parts where they're just very
clinical, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I have a male gynecologist.
So do I.
And also there was a male gynecologist in the crowd in Syracuse, and I actually was overthinking. I was like, I was pretty rude about that. Because he was with his wife, and I was like, I would never fucking date a male gynecologist. His fingers are in other people's pussies all day. I get that it's clinical. But I still am like not. I get that it's and then like later I was like, Dan, do you think I was like rude about that? And he's like, I don't know, I was in the bathroom.
I don't think that's what would like bug me out. I think I would be more concerned if like you are dating a gynecologist and like what if they suck in bed? I'm like, aren't you literally an expert on the vagina?
Right.
You should be amazing at this.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like, why was that what you wanted to do? I get the delivering babies element. I'm like, yes, you want to deliver babies, bring life into the world. That's cool. But like you went to med school, you spent all that time. Why was like doing pap smears your dream? Like why?
I don't know.
That was like my question.
I can tell you that for my OBGYN, his father is also an OBGYN.
Family practice.
It's a family business. Yeah.
It's just a little. And then I'm like, I guess you trust your partner enough to know they're not just like finger banging every person in there, because that would be assault.
Yeah.
But still weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really felt uncomfortable that my gynecologist was a male because I'm used to female gynecologists, but I switched to like shitty health insurance after I was 26. And I was just like, I hate this. I don't like this. I don't like that it's just a guy. And they have to have a woman in there too, just to make sure things are.
Right, yeah. I've never not had a male gynecologist.
Really?
Yeah. I went on, when I was going to Iraq the first time, I didn't want to get my period in the fucking desert. So I was like, give me a birth control where I don't get a period. And he was like the doctor that took my insurance. So I went to him and I was like, this is fine for me. I'm like, he's fine. This is fine.
Yeah.
The practice is convenient. It's conveniently located. He knows what he's doing.
He does.
I'm like, I don't care. And I did think it was interesting in that, like, after you've seen somebody, like, at least once a year for a decade, his bedside manner at delivery was so different than in the office. Like, I felt like in the office, like, that was his, like, fuck, I hate doing this. But the delivering babies part was where he was like, oh, no, I love this part. Like, he was so much more relaxed and, like, in, like, explaining. I have a horrible video of him explaining things to me, like, because he was like, he's like, this is the dirty Duncan, which... Listeners, if you don't know, don't Google it either.
What is it?
It's, oh my gosh, the dirty Duncan is the part of the placenta that is attached to you. Yeah, it's disgusting. And he's got like my placenta in his hand and he's like moving it around and like showing me all the different parts of it. And when they gave me the baby, no warning, they just like plopped her on me. Like, she's disgusting. Like, she's full of gross stuff. I'm still traumatized. Like, they just plopped her on me and I was like, ah. That's literally the face I made, and that was my first interaction with my kid. Like, ah. Yeah, it's a horrible...
Is that normal?
I don't know, but it was like all very funny. He came in wearing like a Star Wars like head skull thing, like the surgery cap thing. I was like, oh, you are like... He's
a character.
Yeah, but he was in, like, I don't know.
He's in his zone.
Yeah, it actually made me like him even more as a doctor. I was like, oh, now I feel bad for you, because all the other stuff is like the shit you don't want to do.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I feel like it really... I can see that. That's like what they really want to do and the other stuff.
I guess. I don't fucking know. I might just be like pulling shit out of my asshole, giving him way too much credit. Like, it's like being in the army. Like, no, like the part I really thrive on is when I get to blow shit up.
So tell me about your time in the army. Like, Talk to me about that. How long have you been in the Army? Like, what's your...
I've been in
what do you do?
16 years. I'm a major. I'm an intel officer, which is both a blessing and a curse.
And, like, tell me what all these positions mean, how you... Like, tell me everything.
So being a major is when you're an officer. So I came in I did ROTC through college. I went to Fordham. That was also where the ROTC battalion was. So it was pretty convenient from that perspective. I got into college first, did a couple years of college, and then I was like, I want to join the Army. I knew my family was never going to be on board with me just like piecing out of college and joining the Army. Like that wasn't an option. So I got an ROTC scholarship and they paid for my last year of school, which thank God, because it was like $45,000. And then once you graduate, you get your commission. Now you're an officer and you have to choose a branch. I chose intelligence. I was able to choose because I went into the reserve side of the house. But if you do active duty, then it's a lottery, and you could be shit hot and just get like a really bad luck, and you could end up as like a chemical officer for 4 years. And don't get me wrong, there's some people that want to be chemical officers. I would never want to, but like if you wanted to fly helicopters and then they told you, no, actually you're going to be in like a hazmat suit for the next 4 years, I would hate my life.
Right.
But I did intel. I immediately deployed. Like I was out of college 9 months before I ended up in Iraq the first time. I've deployed 3 times. I went to Iraq, then I worked for NATO in Kosovo, which was incredible. What an amazing experience. And then I went to back to Iraq most recently in 2016-17.
Whoa.
And then I made major, and here I am. Now I'm trying to figure out, like, what do I do? Because it's really, like, a very interesting parallel in that both, like, my comedy career and my military career are kind of ascending at the same time. And so, like, it's a little bit scary in that I can't just fuck off and say whatever I want on stage, because somebody's always going to take umbrage with something you say. But also, like, at least with a little bit of rank, I have a little more leeway to be like, I'm not doing that. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, I'm not a second lieutenant anymore. I'm like, we're not going to do that. Or at least can be like, I don't want to do that, but here's what we can do. And people don't look at you like you're crazy with a little more rank. At least then they're like, all right, that's fair. Major Palladino wants to do this.
So what made you want to join the Army initially?
Oh, I think everything. There's so many reasons. I mean, I was in high school when 9/11 happened. That was hugely influential. I grew up in northern New Jersey, so I had classmates whose parents were like at the World Trade Center, and like we didn't know if they were okay or not. And some were, and some weren't. And you're just like, sorry. It was just, there was a lot. Like after 9/11, everybody was super patriotic. It was like so easy to recruit people, and now we can't get anybody. We can't get anybody for a variety of reasons. 1, people don't want to serve, and 2, people are ineligible for either drug use or obesity or mental health.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't come into the Army with obesity issues. You can't come into the Army too fat. Like, we'll help you lose weight, but you can't start out too fat. And if you can't pass a drug test, you can't join the Army. And the drug issue is like really a problem, because we continue to drug test you frequently throughout your career. Like, I've always been drug tested, like almost once a month.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was,
Yeah, I was just having the conversation about this yesterday, actually, because I do feel like 9/11 was so influential. Like I know a lot of people that influenced their decision to join the military as well. And I was in first grade when that happened too. So a lot of people that I know were also affected by that. And
were you living in Queens at that time?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I mean, how do you feel about people saying thank you for your service and like feeling obligated to say that?
I mean, it's always like, I'm like, oh, thank you, that's very kind. Like, especially on stage when I bring it up, less so now, to be honest with you, but like if I'm saying I'm in the Army, like sometimes people will clap and like shout it from the audience, and I'm like, oh, thank you very much. On a one-on-one, it's a little awkward, I'm like, oh, thanks. Or like sometimes, depending on like the mood I'm in, I might be cheeky and be like, oh, just keep paying your taxes. Like, you know what I mean? Or thank you for your taxes or stuff like that. But it doesn't really happen as much anymore. Or if it does, it happens in the most uncomfortable way. Like sometimes people will see a group of us out, like when it's our training weekend, we'll go to a diner for lunch and then someone will pay for our lunch. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't have to do that. The Army pays me very well. Thank you so much. Especially since it's your taxpayer dollars that pay for my salary. I'm like, thank you. And then when it's like an older person, I'm like, you're like, oh no, are you on a fixed income? Please don't pay for my lunch. Like I got it. I promise. Thank you.
What do you think the best way is to show appreciation for someone in the military?
Vote. 1000%. Just vote. Like, nothing is more annoying to me than I hear, like, people who don't vote. I'm like, you don't know what a luxury it is to be able to vote.
Why? What about being in the military makes you say that?
Oh, I mean, everything I've seen. It was a headline over the weekend. I think Afghanistan has banned all formal education for women. Initially, it was just higher education, like the Taliban. I shouldn't say Afghanistan. The Taliban has banned all formal education. So, like, it was just secondary for high school and above. And then they got to the point, well, if you can't go to high school, why are we even going to educate you at all? And you're just like, that's so sad. Like,
right.
Like those little girls are never going to get to know the joy of math and reading or like simple shit, geometry. Like, yeah, like, I speak every year. My friend's a social studies teacher, a middle school social studies teacher, and like that's one of the first things I say to these kids who are 7th graders. I'm like, well, in my mind, like, you're the same age as like Anne Frank. I'm like, you can handle hearing that. Did you know if you lived in Afghanistan right now, all the girls in the class would be gone? Like, they're not allowed to be in class with you. And their heads like their eyes bulge out. I'm like, yeah, that's what a luxury it is to be American.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, there's places right now on this earth that aren't letting kids go to school.
Do you feel scared before you're deployed? Like, do you feel anxiety, or how do you cope with that fear of, like, going into a place that's much more dangerous than America?
No.
I
don't know if that's PTSD or not, but no.
How come? Like,
I don't know. That was never my temperament to begin with, to, like, kind of catastrophize like that. I was like, oh, it is what it is. Or maybe it's because I'm religious and I'm like, well, it's out of my hands anyway. It's up to God. Whatever they want to do about this situation, it's not for me to say. I just live my life and whatever happens, happens.
What do you talk about this in your act at all? Like, how much does comedy cross over with the military? Like, do you talk about being in the Army?
I do. I talk, like, the Russia-Ukraine stuff was really tough. Like, when Russia invaded Ukraine, it gave me a massive panic attack. Like, for 4 days, I was just useless. Like, all I was doing was reading all the reports and doing the analysis and, like, every piece of information I could get my hands on, which is partly because I'm an intel officer and partly because I'm like, what does this mean for me? Like, it's, I'm married with a kid now. So my third deployment, which was my most unpleasant deployment, was my only deployment where I was married. Like, somebody else, like, not my parents, gave a shit that I was over there. And that was when I started to really feel, like, the tolls of the sacrifice. Like, the other ones, I was in my young and in my 20s. It was helping to pay off my school loans. Like, I didn't really care. But the third one where I was like, I'm a wife. And this is how I'm spending my first year of marriage in Iraq. Like, I missed my first anniversary, like, all of that stuff. That's when I was like, this sucks. Plus, it was a difficult mission. Fighting ISIS was really tough. Like, they were just so brutal. But with Russia-Ukraine, that triggered such a bad panic attack in me. Like, it was almost like having an out-of-body experience where, and I know you talked a lot about anxiety when you had Steve Rogers on, but it was like, you have this out-of-body experience where, like, all the coping mechanisms that you have, whether it's meditating or running or working out or cutting back on alcohol or, like, whatever, none of it's going to work. You really literally just need to let it take over and wait for it to end, because it will end. You just don't know when. And so until then, you're like, all right, fuck it. This is what it's going to be like for 3-4 days. And then I was like, oh. And then it ended, and I got control of my brain back, and I was like, okay, this is better. We can handle the Russia-Ukraine war in a much more manageable, healthy way instead of just completely obsessing about it.
what do you feel like is your role, like you are able to make those active decisions, or were you just kind of like worried about like what the future held for, like what were those thoughts like going through your head during that
Yeah,
time?
I mean, so when you're fighting ISIS, it's mostly an insurgent group. They are highly organized. I don't want to say like mostly an insurgent group to say that they're just a ragtag group of like, oh, you rabble rousers. They're not. They're from the top down anyway. The leadership is very sophisticated. They're very smart. They were very strategic about the things they did when they did them. But when you're talking about Russia, you're talking about what we call a near peer threat. This is like army versus army, tanks versus tanks. They have a lot of the same capabilities that we do. They fight the same way we do. And you're talking like large scale combat operations, and it gets scary. And you're like, and they have nuclear weapons, and Putin's a maniac. So you're like, I don't know where any of this is going. Like this could be nuts. And then Ukraine's surrounded by a bunch of NATO countries, and some of our NATO partners aren't always reliable. You're like, what? Any million number of things could go wrong. And you're like, well, I guess I'll make a will now. Like, I guess we just have no idea what's going to happen next.
How do you have a commitment to how long you're going to serve?
No, as an officer, I'm technically done. I can resign at any moment. I won't get a retirement out of it, like I wouldn't get a pension, but I could resign tomorrow if I was like, this isn't fun for me anymore. I don't know if I would or wouldn't if it meant like if we were actually putting like boots on the ground in Europe, which would be insane. Like I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that that's on the horizon, but if it ever got to that, like where Article 5 of our conventions in NATO were enacted, I'd be like, like I don't know if I would or wouldn't go. I don't know that it would matter anyway, because if I chose to resign, like we did stop loss back in the early 2000s. People were getting out of the military. They're like, all right, I did my 4 years. And they're like, nope, you're doing 2 more and we're sending you to Afghanistan. You're like, no, but my contract's done. They're like, no, this is stop loss. Sorry, you're going. And so like, if I retired and they needed a bunch of intel officers that were also majors, they're just going to go down the list and be like, oh, she just got out. She's probably not that fat yet. Like, let's call her back. And so I'm like, I don't think it matters. I don't think I would have a choice.
Right.
So it's like, I'd rather probably go on my own terms with my section that I've trained in my unit, than run the risk of like waiting to be called back.
That makes sense. So do you have like what point did comedy come into this? Like, because it feels like there's such a huge juxtaposition between literally fighting the largest possible enemy and war that you could and the most noble thing that you could, and then doing comedy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Russia wasn't engaging in conflicts back then when I joined. I started comedy in 2014 after my dad died, so it was just a way for me to cope, because I'm not like a therapy person. Like I've been to it, I've done it. I if it works for you, that's wonderful. I do think I need to go back to therapy. It's not something like I have planned for at this time. Like I would certainly benefit from having a therapist in my life, but after my dad died, it didn't feel like a situation where I really needed to do that. It felt like I needed to do something creative, and I chose comedy. I'd always loved comedy. That wasn't like a surprise to anyone. Like in high school and in 8th grade, I won those superlatives like biggest mouth or class clown, like that crap. I'd been a performer my whole life, all the way through college. Like I did the vagina monologues one year. I was president of our university choir for 2 years. Like I played French horn, like stupid shit. And then I joined the Army. So like all that kind of creative fun stuff didn't happen. Like I wasn't doing those things. I spent most of my 20s in, developing nations doing intel. So like being so young when my dad passed away, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll take a comedy class. So I took a stand-up class with Corey Kahaney, And I saw her for the first time like a couple months ago since that class. And I was like, oh my gosh, Corey, thank God your class didn't suck. Because I might not have pursued comedy if it sucked. Like if it had been terrible, but it wasn't terrible. It was a lot of fun. And our graduation show at Gotham was a lot of fun. And that was just the beginning of the end. Like I never looked back after that.
I'm so impressed with how many comedians got into comedy taking a comedy class. I didn't realize until I started really talking to people. A lot of people I took a class, and I was like, whoa. And I'm like, I've never taken a class.
Yeah.
I think because I took so many acting classes, that was my childhood kind of. And
Right.
I grew up just obsessed with taking acting classes. I didn't think to take a comedy class, but I'm just like, wow, a lot of people really, they took a comedy class and they're like, oh shit.
Did you act as a child as well?
I did, yeah. I did act. I took acting classes since I was like elementary school.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was like obsessed with acting.
Yeah, I knew you went to Stella Adler. I didn't know that you had done it from like young days.
Yeah, I went to this place called Tada. It was like a musical theater place on like 28th Street.
Oh. Oh, but see, I love that. I think that's such a difference about growing up as a city kid. You're exposed to so many more like realities and possibilities.
Yeah.
Whereas it never, until I started doing stand-up, it didn't even occur to me that people did that. Because most of the comics that I was exposed to on television were also actors. So I think I thought it went the other way around.
Right.
Like, I act, but I'm also funny.
Yeah.
So I'll just go do this thing called stand-up over here. Like, until I really got into comedy, I just wasn't aware that, no, it's the other way around. Like, well, for some people it was like, do stand-up, go to JFL, get a development deal.
Yeah.
Your life has changed forever. Like, amazing. Now that never happens, but...
I feel like one thing that I feel like I've always said this, so I think you don't talk enough about this. You have a huge achievement. You were a finalist of HBO Latina. That's amazing. I've always said, I always say to Ray, I'm like, Linette, I used to say, Linette does not talk about enough. This is a huge achievement. That's crazy. That's amazing.
I know. We talked about this so much when we did that gig.
We did. We talked about this in the car. I was like, Linette, why aren't you just like, if I was a finalist of HBO Latina, I mean, obviously, I'm not Latina, but that's amazing. Like, that's an amazing thing. How was that? What was that like? It was during the pandemic.
It was.
Tell me about that.
It was amazing. All the comics that I met, most of them I'm still in very good contact with. Like, one's in Chicago, one's in Miami, and then Sasha Mercy, who's enormous. She's like you, has like a huge following on social media. She's great. She's such a great little like sketch writer and she does all her own videos. Like, she'll play 3 different people in her sketches. But it was great from that perspective. But I by far was like the most junior comic. Like Cisco Duran and Abby Sanchez, who won my year, they both probably been doing comedy like 13, 14 years at that time, and that was 2 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was a lot of fun. I wish it hadn't been during the pandemic because we didn't get like the feeling of a live audience.
Right.
But I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's because people looked at it as like it was an HBO Latino thing, so I don't get the same credit sometimes for having an HBO credit. Or I feel like sometimes people really overemphasize the Latino part, like it's less than like regular HBO. And I still have bookers telling me like, I would love to book you, but we only book people with like late night sets or major credits. I'm like, but I have an HBO credit. And so you're like, why don't you talk about that more? I'm like, because up to this point, nobody has given a shit. Like, no.
To me, that's like a major credit. Like, that's huge.
It is, but it's, I don't know. Maybe I just haven't been good at selling it, but it has literally never done anything for me.
Weird.
Except in terms of like experience and then the networking I made within the HBO Latino community. But like outside of them, like people just don't care. And you're like, all right, but like then it kind of gets to like, how much do I have to do for somebody to give me some respect? Not to like channel Rodney Dangerfield, but like, like I've opened for Attell a bunch of times. Like, I'm opening for him this week at Caroline's, and I have done HBO, and I've won festivals, and you're like, I don't know. I'm just going to keep plugging along, and then hopefully one day people will be like, hey, kid, you got it. Like,
I feel like no matter what you do, like you always feel like you're not getting the respect that you deserve. Like it always feels like there's not enough. Like I feel like I'm always like striving for this one thing. Like if I get this, then I'm gonna be respected in this way. And then you get it, and then you're not. You're like, what the fuck is it going to take for people to see me in the way that I feel like I deserve?
Well, I know
to be
you.
seen?
Yeah, like I know for you, it's like been so tough because you're this beautiful girl, right? And you've had a lot of success very early on, and everybody's like, oh, she just got it because she's hot. And I'm like, no, she works really hard. I'm like, I don't think you know Natalie. Like, you really don't. Like, do you think social media is easy?
Yeah.
It's not. Just going to your website. The fact that you have a website. There are comics right now with Netflix specials that don't have websites. Like, that you have merch on your website. That's a different, like, okay, all right, sometimes a website can just be a landing page and people don't do, like, the extra step to just have a little bit of this, like, make some fucking merch. I have a hard time with merch because I don't want to be committed to, like, having 100 t-shirts that I thought were amazing and everybody else was like, I'm not spending $20 on that. Like, I don't know how you do the merch. It gives me anxiety to, like, come up with merch ideas. We'll have to talk about it one day. But, like, I get it. Like, I completely get it that, like, it's like, all right, no, we all just work really hard in our own different ways. So if somebody has a little bit of success, you, like, don't begrudge them that. Like, you don't know what they did to get there.
Totally. I mean, I definitely, yeah, people are always going to try to discredit any accomplishment that you have, but you have to remember the work that you put into it. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I definitely work my ass off. I'm tired.
But you do. Like, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, no, you should, like, when you had, like, you were writing articles for Inc., right? Mm-hmm. At one point.
Yeah, I still do. I have one more coming out about Rachel Wolfson.
I don't know who that is.
She's in Jackass.
Oh, okay. I don't know anything about, like, TV or movies. Like, the last few movies I've watched were on planes, and it was movies I've already seen 100 times.
I love it.
Like, I don't know anything. I don't know any, like, popular TV shows. I can't. I don't have the time.
I like watching the same thing over and over. I just finished that show, The Bear, last night on Hulu. It's awesome. It's like about a kitchen. I think it came out a little while ago, though.
No, see, even that, I don't know.
It also has a stand-up comic in it. I think I might butcher her name. I'm gonna butcher her name, but she's a great actor.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I feel like the merch thing, it is scary when you print a bunch of stuff, but at the end of the day, I feel like people just want to support you too. So it's like, I feel like people are like, people want to support you at the end of the show. Like, even if it's
positive.
Well, it's true though. Like, people are like, even if it's not like the coolest shirt ever, they're like, I just saw this person, I like them, I want to support you. You know, you kind of have to, like.
That's fair. Maybe I'm such a pessimist that I'm like, nobody would ever want my shit.
No, you just have to remember that, like, it's okay if it's not perfect. Like, there are times where, like, I've gone to see a concert or something, and I'm like, it's not the coolest shirt, but, like, I like that band, I had a good night, and this will remind me of that night. You know, and it's not always about, like I did the show I did in Hartford. This girl, she was like, I was like, I don't remember. I said, what did you do for work? And she's like, I got fired today. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, I'm not going to try to make this funny. I was like, I'm just going to try to make this person feel better. Because at the end of the day, comedy is, like, about making people laugh. And I'm not going to try to make fun of I was like, I can't think of anything funny in this moment. And I don't want to roast her. So I'm just going to be like, I was like, what's your name? And I was just, like, tried to make her, I was like, who's your boss? That's like, how ugly is your boss? Or, like, something like that, right? And I feel like those are the type of things where it's like, even if it's not about me being like, whatever, it's like about like, oh, I had a nice night. And like, this kind of reminds me of that. You can't even overthink it. Cause sometimes it's just like the same way you keep like a ticket stub. It's like, oh, this reminds me of this night that I had. Like,
You're way more confident than I am because I overthink everything. I'm like, no. Like, I can't do this. I think the only thing I don't overthink anymore is what I'm wearing on stage.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I've definitely learned that I just want to be comfortable.
Same.
Like, I don't care what it looks like. And I'll I'll get on stage without makeup on. I don't give a shit.
Really?
Yeah.
That's one thing I still struggle with is being seen without makeup on.
But you don't wear a lot of makeup.
It's for me, it's the eyeliner, the black eyeliner.
Yeah.
I feel like I cannot be seen without it.
Yeah, I've seen you once, only because our hotel rooms were
Yeah.
next to each other and you were taking off your makeup.
Yes.
It's like transformation. Like, who is this?
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like I can't, I don't know. Like, maybe I'll post like an Instagram story with a filter with no makeup, maybe. And I've done a few Patreon videos where I don't have makeup and I'm putting my makeup on. But otherwise, I feel very like
exposed.
I cannot do stand up without, like it's uncomfortable for me.
Oh, I don't know. I'm okay with it. Because, I don't know, maybe because nobody's trying to fuck me.
No. I feel like for me it's such an extreme look, like the black top eyeliner. Yeah, that like when I don't wear it, I feel like I look so different, even though I probably don't. But I mean, it just feels like such an extreme difference that I'm like, I can't. Yeah. I could try to leave my house without it, but I'm like, no, I can't. I gotta go back in.
But it takes nothing to do that, right?
Yeah.
It takes like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
No, I'm wearing like a full face of makeup right now. Like, I have to wait for parts of my face to dry before I can do more to it.
I'm trying to figure out how to, I started watching more makeup videos. I had to do like a self-tape of a fake makeup tutorial, so I started watching makeup tutorials, and I was like, holy shit, the transformations these girls do are like amazing.
Are you still you do self-tapes?
Yeah.
Wow. What do you, like, for what? Like, is it stuff I don't know if you have representation that sends you out for, or?
Yeah, just like random, I haven't gotten anything, just random commercials and stuff.
I've gotten like one commercial this year.
At least you got it, though.
I got it because I'm a veteran. And so whenever you do work for Veterans Affairs, like, whoever is outward facing, like, the talent has to be veterans.
Oh,
so
cool.
It really limits the pool of, like, who's eligible. So it's not like I had a lot of people to compete with.
That's still awesome,
And then add woman, and then add female minority. Like, you know what I mean? Like, then I'm like, the pool gets smaller and smaller.
How do you feel about New York City as, like, a comedy scene? Like, do you like the New York City comedy scene?
Oh, I don't think I would ever want to be in any other scene.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely not. Like, my husband's old as fuck, and he keeps talking about wanting to move to Florida, and I was like, I'll visit. I'm like, I am not moving to Florida. That's not happening. I mean, there are great scenes out there. Don't get me wrong. Like, Nashville has a really great scene. I've never been to Austin, but I would imagine it is. Like, you've been there, you know. Like, there's, like, you know, once Joe Rogan moved his whole empire there, and The Creek and the Crave is out there. Like, Miami's okay. Like, Miami has a lot of comics, but it's just such a party town. Like, I feel like every time I'm doing comedy there, they're waiting for me to start roasting someone, or I'm like, how high are you? Like, are there 3 of me right now? Also, Miami makes me feel really insecure. Like, I went to an Equinox in Miami. It was like plastic everything. And then I went back to my New York Upper West Side Equinox. I'm like, oh, this is much better.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of old Jewish people.
Like, okay.
The women are very free.
I feel that. I think New York has the best, like, writers and performers, but sometimes I get just tired of, like, the social dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not in it the same way you are. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, you hang at the, or not hang at the stand, like, you're at the stand, and that, like, I feel like that club is inescapable. Like, you see everyone all the time, and you're like, ugh. Like,
yeah, it's definitely my favorite place to perform. Like, I love the people. I love the regulars there. But it is definitely a place where, like, you are going to see at least 30 comedians every single night. And that's, like, a lot of social interaction. But it's definitely, like, my favorite club in the city to perform at.
No, I mean, it's beautiful, for sure. It's just, like, it's not, I don't know, maybe because I'm not, like, at your level yet where I can walk in there and feel comfortable. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's the same when I go to the Olive Tree, which I go to a lot because I have my show at the Pear. But at least at the Olive Tree, like, I'm friends with the owner. Like, so that makes me a lot more comfortable when I can like wave to the owner and he comes and sits down and says hello and like has, you know, like we'll talk politics or something, than like whether it was just comics who are like, I went to one of the club holiday parties the other day and I was like, this is my hell.
I'm proud to say I've never been to a comedy holiday party.
You're not missing anything. I mean, think about how awkward comics are sometimes. And then if you have 100 of them and none of them are drunk yet, like...
I feel like you go and they're like, this is awkward, isn't it? Yeah, this is awkward. Yeah, isn't this awkward? And you're like, everyone just talked about how awkward they feel of every conversation.
I definitely overdrank because I was so anxious. I was like just trying to do anything to calm my nerves until like people that I'm friends with. Like,
yeah.
I like to think I'm friendly with everyone, but not everyone is in my phone, you know what I mean?
Totally.
And so I was like, until like someone I give a shit about shows up, I'm just gonna be in the corner getting drunk.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the funny part. Like I'm closer with the bartenders than I am like with other comics. So like they're like, you want another? I'm like,
you're like,
no, but yes.
Yes. Okay.
Are you sober now?
I haven't. Well, I smoke weed a lot, but I haven't had a drink since the beginning of since the day of my special.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's the summertime.
September 8th.
Okay. All right. End of summer.
Yeah.
Well, because I remember I was there and I know what outfit I was wearing.
Yeah, it was nice out.
Yeah.
I was wearing a tank top.
Yeah, I was wearing like a summer outfit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thanks.
How do you...
I mean, I don't really... Well, Dan doesn't drink, and so it's kind of like a solidarity. It's kind of hard. Like, it's not... I didn't really like drinking, and I didn't really drink that much in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then that on top of the fact of, like, your partner doesn't drink, so...
That's great.
I don't know. I just didn't... I didn't really like drinking.
I think your partner has so much to do with that, because I would never... Like, if I had alcohol in the house at all when I was single, it was maybe a 6-pack in the fridge for Sunday football. That was it.
Yeah.
Like, or I would buy those, like, Lucy's that are, like, a little bit bigger of, like, beer so I could sample different ones because I really like beer. And then with my husband, he drinks so much. I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, we finish a bottle every night. And I've never had this much at all. Like, I gained 10 pounds the first year we dated. It was horrible. And now I'm so used to that. It makes me feel like I'm an alcoholic, but I've never been sloppy. Like, I can count on one hand the people that have seen me drunk in comedy. Like, I think the last time I was drunk in front of people in comedy was my birthday.
That's fair.
Yeah, but I also share it with one of my best friends, or two of my best friends in comedy. So I'm like... Yeah, we're gonna party that night.
What's the birthday? Who all has the same birthday?
So Alice, the girl that we auditioned for the Betches podcast with, she and I have the same birthday. Not that we party together because Alice doesn't drink, but Camille Theobald.
Oh, cool.
She and I have the same birthday.
What's the birthday?
August 30th.
So you're a Virgo?
I am a Virgo.
Oh, that makes so much. I was telling I was like, oh my God, Linette got there early. I feel bad, and then I was literally about to say that you're a very Virgo, but I knew that he wouldn't understand that because he's like not in like men aren't very astrology. Yeah. I feel like you're very Virgo but then I was like, it's probably like, it's also very military because you're just very organized.
But I'm not organized.
I feel like you are. No, I guess you got the time wrong, but I feel like you're very organized.
I would have been 10 minutes early, which is a military way of being on time.
I feel like you're like Virgo and organized.
But then I was 40 minutes early because I'm an airhead. Like, that's why. I was like, oh, she said 3. No, she didn't, you idiot.
Wait, so before I forget, what is the best advice you've ever received?
I was thinking about that because of our text message, and I was like, all right, I really have to like think about it. And the one thing that keeps coming back to me is years ago, like after the first show I ever did with Attell was a veterans show. It was a veterans benefit show. And so he was like the special guest headliner. And then after that, like I ran into him all the time on McDougal Street because I was barking a lot for the Grizzly Pear, which is down the street from the cellar. And I would bark like 3 shows in a row. I'd do the 8, 10, and the midnight. And he would see me out there barking, and I think he kind of just took pity on me. And he was like, what are you doing out here? Like, he's like, why don't you try doing spots at that other place? I was like, he meant, like, at the time, the Lantern. I was like, oh, you know, they throw me spots every now and then, but they don't really give me a lot of work. He's like, that's right. Just go where the love is. And I don't think he meant it in, like, a philosophic way. I think he was just being very matter-of-fact, like, go where the love is, like almost like a command. And I'm like, that's just so true. Like, why waste your energy in places that don't want you there, don't care about you, or with people that don't want you there, don't care about you? I'm like, just go. And that has been, like, such a huge, like, little voice in the back of my head since then. I'm like, all right, when one of the greats is telling you to go where the love is, like, just listen.
I love, that's funny. That's actually with Sarah Tolmash's advice, and I really love it. I actually bring it up a lot.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. I really, really love that advice because I had been thinking, I have like a predominantly male audience, and I had been really frustrated, been like, there are not enough women that like me. Like, I don't have enough women like that listeners or fans or blah, blah, blah. And it was really frustrating. It's like, how can I get more women to like me? And then I was like, you know what? Like, men are people. Like, I don't give a fuck. If it's all men, like, who gives a shit? Like, I don't care. I don't need to, like, appeal. Like, I'm just going to appeal to the people that like me. I'm just going to be myself. And then, like, gradually, like, more women started liking me. And, like, I'm fine with men liking me, too. And, like, that's just one example. But that was, like, what it originally resonated with me when Sarah said that to me, like, a few months ago. But I feel like that's just such great advice because we're never satisfied or grateful with, like, what we do have,
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think from that perspective, it was just like, if this direction isn't working for you because it's just people are literally closed off to you, then go with the direction where people are accepting of you. I guess, which is like one of the frustrating things about, like, the HBO credit. It's like it just feels so like it feels like bisected, right? Like, the vast majority of the comedy community is not Latino, right? It's not people of color. There's a lot of white people in comedy. So when you throw that credit out there, they're like, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go somewhere where somebody appreciates the credit. Like, I don't know.
I feel like there's, like, a lot of people that audition for that, though. And I think
for sure. I mean, the year I got it, I think there were over, like, I don't know, like, over 500 submissions because it was free to submit, right? Like, and that's kudos to HBO and HBO Latino for making that accessible for everyone. Like, all you had to do was have a 5 to 7 minute tape. There was, like, a 6-week window that you could submit, and that was it. It was game over.
At the end of the day, like, you're getting flown out to LA by HBO performing. One of 5 people. I feel like people are always doing whatever they can to discredit your accomplishments, regardless, like, not you personally, but whoever's accomplishments, regardless. You just got that because they needed someone that was this race. You just got that because you're a woman. You just got that because you just got that because you have this disability and they need someone with this disability. Like, that's always what people are trying to do. And I feel like, like, those are the voices that we need to get rid of in our heads because those are, like, the voices we already have.
Yeah.
And it's just people that are jealous trying to convince themselves that it was okay that they didn't try.
It actually, it makes you feel so much worse when people say shit like that. You're like, oh, wow, you don't think I have any talent or skill in this game at all. You're like, I'm getting it because I check a bunch of blocks? Cool, thanks. Like, all right, well, and it, like, to your point, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to work harder, and then I'll talk to you never, because I'm going to be way past you.
Sometimes I feel like, everyone can get, like, caught up in, like, self-pity or feeling sad, but, like, there's nothing that, like, motivates me more, gets me, like, out of bed than, like, people being, like, pissed at, like, people not liking me. I'm like, oh, you don't like me? Fucking watch me succeed.
I've seen that. We spend a lot of time in the car where I'm like, okay, but I still have to focus on driving. maybe stay in your seat. I've seen Natalie lose her shit. I'm like, okay. But it was never like, I never found, like, during our conversations where your rage was unjustified. Like, I didn't think you were being irrational. Like, I was like, no, she's a very self-aware person. Like, she's like, oh, no, you're fucking with me, and I don't like it. And that's going to be the end of it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's pull a tarot. So this tarot deck, this is brand new. I'm very excited about it. This is a new tarot deck. I got it in Woodstock. The weekend Dan proposed, which was last weekend. It's so pretty. Oh my God.
So
I don't want to pronounce this. Can you?
Fyodor Pavlov.
Beautiful. Some boobs on the front of the book. Love that. And it's like gold, like a gold-sided. This is a very exciting deck.
It's very pretty.
It was at this like kind of like religious bookstore, I guess, like kind of spiritual bookstore in like Woodstock.
Yeah.
Do you want to shuffle the cards? It's so funny because I bought this.
I'm anxious.
I bought this like troll doll lighter that I thought was cool, and then yesterday, this goes to like the merch point. Yesterday, Dan looked at it and it had I kept the price tag on it, and he's like,
I'm gonna shuffle it like I'm playing dominoes.
yes.
My Puerto Rican roots are coming out right now.
I love it.
This is how Puerto Ricans shuffle. I'm making sure they're all separated too, because it really is.
They are stuck together.
A brand new deck. Like,
It's fresh.
I don't know. I've listened to the podcast, so I know like it doesn't have any energy imported onto it.
Oh, we need to
yet.
put some energy
I know.
into it.
But now I'm concerned that it's going to be like my neurotic energy.
Well, I totally understand that. Sometimes when I'm anxious and then yeah.
My neurotic Virgo energy.
No, it's good. I've been wanting you to do my podcast for a while.
I know. I'm so glad we finally get to do
Me too.
this. You do ask very good questions.
Thank you. I try. Do you have a favorite gift you got for Christmas?
We don't exchange gifts.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of got like out of control with like the spending and stuff, and it gives me anxiety to have to like think about it. And my husband, like if he wants something, he's just gonna go out and get it. And he really only has one joy in life. It's golf. And so it really, oh my gosh, in the pecking order of my husband's life, it is golf, our daughter, and then maybe me, like maybe, like, but it is 1000% golf. So I'm like, he has everything he needs for golf. There's nothing I can get him that he can't, I don't know, get himself. I don't know, maybe that sounds like
How long have you
weird.
guys been married?
It'll be 7 years at the end of the week.
Whoa.
7 years on Saturday.
So are you going to work New Year's Eve or are you guys going to celebrate?
No, it was so funny. So we try to retrace our steps every year. We took all of our wedding photos at Rock Center, which was really fun. It was like a celebrity wedding. And then, so we always go back to like that area for dinner. And then we take a picture in front of the tree and blah, blah, blah. But then he's
fun.
like, let's do dinner and a show. I was like, I'm not doing a show as an audience member. I'm not paying to see comedy. What is wrong
You're going to
with
see
you?
comedy?
He's like, he wanted to go to a comedy show. We did do that in 2020 because there were not no options, but because it was pandemic and so much was closed. We went to the late show at Stress Factory because the
That's
tell
fun.
was there.
That's fun.
Yeah, like it was a tell.
If you're seeing like someone that's really amazing, it's like, okay.
That's, yeah, the one and last time that I will ever pay to see comedy on my anniversary.
That's awesome. All right, so let's see. Oh, wow. Okay. I don't even know what this is. The Four of... I don't know. What is this? It's two women dancing.
Ooh, and one's got her tit out.
Oh, it's the Four of Wands.
And God, I hope
Oh, it
that's a
seems
shadow and
nice.
not armpit hair.
It's definitely me because I stink. Okay, Four of Wands.
Is this us? I think this is us.
It is.
There's a long brunette with armpit hair, which is also me at the moment because I need a wax. And then there's Natalie with the side boob.
Okay, Four of Wands. The influence in this particular card is that of joy and celebration. The castle can be interpreted as a restrictive, oppressive structure, which the dancing couple in the foreground are happy to leave behind for some fresh air and sunlight. Or it could evoke refuge and domesticity, and the women are simply enjoying the land surrounding it with their home in the background. The idea of domestic plenty and of the potential fruitlessness of the querent's endeavors is echoed in the garland of fruit and flowers that hangs above the dancers. The wands themselves, with their leafing branches and streaming ribbons, are meant to evoke Beltane and the maypole, a celebration of joy, the coming spring, even if a metaphorical one, a time of renewal in the querent's life, and emotional and spiritual awakening.
I feel like that's so appropriate.
Yeah, I feel like that's nice.
Like, I have my anniversary coming up. You just got engaged, so that's very domestic.
Yeah, we're celebrating domesticity.
But also, like, the idea that it could also be, like, just a shedding of the institutions that are holding us back.
Yeah.
Not that I'm ever going to leave comedy, but, like, I can certainly change my approach to it. Oh, I love this.
It is a nice card. We're dancing. It's a new year.
Yeah, and it talks about springtime coming, which could not come sooner.
Yes.
After a 15
It's been
degree.
freezing out.
Yeah.
We were in Syracuse. Oh my God. We drove in the craziest blizzard of our it was
Crazier than ours?
Yeah, I was literally thinking of you because I was like, oh my God. It was reminding me of that. There was less snow and it was more like icy and windy. That's the only other time I've driven to a gig in just like absolute insane weather is with you.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
We were like, her stories on Instagram were like, are we going to make it? I was like, I fucking hope so.
They were crazy. It was
I don't want
5 degrees.
Scranton.
Yes. It was the crazy like temperatures I've and weather conditions I've been a passenger in, because to be honest, if I was driving, I wouldn't still be here.
Well, one day you'll have to explain tarot to me. I've gone to like one fortune teller in my life, but
I'm too scared, but I should.
To go to a fortune teller?
Yeah, but I should though.
Why?
I don't know.
Why would you be scared? Why do you fuck with these cards then?
Okay, I should go to a fortune teller. I don't know. I just need to find the right one.
Yes.
I don't know. Anyway, Linette.
There's a lot of like naked women on here.
I know. That's the vibe here.
Yeah, and they all look like me. Like long black hair. Except I'm not that skinny.
I love them. They're beautiful. Linette, where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at Linette_Palladino. That's the only one I have because TikTok is owned by the Chinese and they're recording all our info. Spoken like a real intel officer. I would caution anybody that especially if like you're really big on social media, TikTok is not the basket to put your eggs in.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I just don't know how long like governments are gonna allow it. Like some states are already banning TikTok.
What states?
Oh, God, off the top of my head, I don't know. But there was mostly just disputes about, like, taxes.
Whoa.
But the EU is strongly considering banning TikTok as well.
Damn.
Yeah, there's just too many vulnerabilities.
Well, I'm glad that I'm not reliant on it, but I still like TikTok.
Technically, no one in the military is allowed to have TikTok.
Whoa.
We certainly have soldiers who do, and we actually have some who are, like, influencers and stuff, but technically we're not allowed to.
That's crazy.
I don't have it on my phone.
Whoa.
I know some people who are big on social media who are, like, military spouses that literally use burner phones for posting to TikTok.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they, like, download the content, post it to TikTok, take the battery out of the phone, and then they're done.
They go a long way.
Yeah.
Damn.
They're like that. They're like that extra paranoid.
They're committed. Oh my God. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you can find the podcast, youtube.com/Natalie Cuomo. Subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Natalie Cuomo. Download my new album, Shut Up You Loved It, on iTunes, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.